Hello everyone, this is my second video about the French defense, and today I will show you the Winawer variation. Let's see. So e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, bishop b4, and we enter in the Winawer. So this move is made in order to exchange the bishop with the knight at the right moment. White will have a damage structure with points of pressure on c3 and on c2, but will have a comfortable development. Black instead will have to play on the c file, but weaknesses on the dark squares, and in the king side to the loss of two tempos by developing the bishop and then exchange it for the knight. So black will have problem, especially on the g7 square. So e5. Okay, by locking the structure, the center, white says that accept black's challenge and wants to attack on the king side. So here c5, we struck in the center, and we want to mine the center of white with the taking, and then with putting pressure on the e5 pawn. So a3 and take. Okay, and now 97. Okay, and 97 has two ideas. Is preparing to meet knight f3 with ideas like knight f5 and putting pressure on the d4 pawn, but more important, to meet queen g4 with also queen c7, and after take there is rook g8. So I will show you. Queen c7, take, rook g8, defended by the knight. So I will show you this variation later. You can skip the video if you want. So let's see knight f3. Okay, with knight f3, we play knight c6. Okay, and let's say a4. There are many ideas here for white. Let's start with a4. Okay, so the idea of a4 is giving the square a3 for the development of the dark square bishop. In fact, the a3 f8 diagonal will be the bishop there will be able to take advantage of the imbalances of the position, like the lack of control of the dark squares. So what black wants to do is to develop the queen on a5. A really important idea to bond the queen or the bishop to the defense of the c3 pawn. So let's see some variations. Um, with queen d2, we can play bishop d7, and also with bishop d2, we can play bishop d7. But there are two main differences. Let's see with queen d2 first. Okay, these are the only two reasonable replies. Okay, by playing queen d2, white leaves to himself the possibility to develop the bishop on a3. A good approach for black is to move on b6, reinforcing our structure on the c5 square. But more important, instead of moving the bishop on d7, we want to develop the bishop via a6 to trade more pieces. Because remember, as I said in the first in the start of the video, the imbalances of the position are that we are a bit closed, we are under developed, but we have a better structure. So if we are able to exchange some pieces, we will be better in the end game. So if we can trade our bad bishop for the good bishop of the white, we are doing great. So on a3, this pawn seems hanging, but we can still play bishop a6, because after take, this would be a mistake. What we can play instead is castle. A really strong move because after take, we are down a pawn, but our structure is super good, and the white structure instead has point of pressure on the c file, on the a4 square, and also on the e5 square. So we will be able to regain the pawn, and then play with a better structure. This is one idea. Another idea instead is developing the bishop on d2. Okay, if he develops the bishop on d2, we have a problem if we play b6. B6 is a blunder because he can strike with c4. C4 threatening our queen. So if we move the queen on a6, it will be under attack by the bishop. So only move knight before, but after c3, knight back, the diagonal is closed, but he can take. And here we have two possibilities. Taking knight is bad due to bishop b5, and taking with the pawn, it's still bad because he can play c4, and after knight b4, we lose a pawn. So um, So yeah, we can't play b6. A better thing to do is play bishop d7 and c4. It's not a problem here because we can play queen c7, and after take, and the push, we can just retreat, and if he push, he lose a pawn. He lose a pawn, and if he takes, we can just take in the center and have a comfortable position. Here we take with the queen, and knight f5, defending this, attacking this, and we are fine. Later on, we can play also c5, bishop c6. We are fine. So yeah, you need to be a bit careful about these two differences about queen d2 or bishop d2. Another idea for black, for white here, it's not to play a4, but to play bishop d3. But still, we can take advantage of the c3 square by playing queen a5, and after bishop d2 here we can't. We could play bishop d7, but there is a bit a small difference from the previous situation, and it is that here c4 it's playable because after queen c7 and take, he can. He can first reinforce the d4 square, and then he can castle, and the difference is that he didn't waste a tempo by playing a4, so he developed an attacker for our for the king side, and he's closer to the castle. So here is a bit is an inaccuracy in playing bishop d7, but in this type of structure, what you have to look is also for some pushes. So what we can do here is play c4, and after the bishop retreats, we can play bishop d7, and after, let's say, castle, we can do long castle, and this position is fine. Maybe here there are some ideas like knight here, and maybe h6. No, not h6 because we lose this pawn. But let's say rook f8, and then later on h6, and we can play here. We can play in the king side and try to attack him. So. So yeah, these are the ideas with knight f3. Let's check the ideas with queen g4. Okay, here, let's see the position. Okay, so queen g4. Here, there are many ways to reply with black, like knight f5 that protects the pawn on g7, and also c per d or castle. But what I like to play, and I think it's the most challenging one for white and also for black, is queen c7. A really strong move. Sacrifice two pawns to exploit the weaknesses on the c file and on the c3 square. So after take, here there are two ways to protect. Here, well, let's say first, if he takes, is a blunder because we give a check, and after, if he protects, we take the rook in any case. But let's say this, we can first give a check and then take the rook, or also take the rook right now is good. So. A good There are two good ways to reply for white, and are queen d3 and knight e2. Let's say queen e3, queen d3. What we can do here is take a pawn in the center, and after knight e2, taking here. So if white takes, we can trade the queens and play for the endgame. Our target, so he has the bishop pair, and this pawn could be a problem. So what you have to be careful of is the pawn on h4, and maybe sometimes also the c7 square and the d6 square, not right now, but with knight jumps here, these two squares could be a problem, and also with the development of the bishop on b2, he can protect the h8 square, that is the square of promotion, but is a good position. So another thing that he could do is play first bishop f4, but after queen h8, if he takes, we can trade. And if he takes with the knight instead, we can just develop, and we are totally fine here. It is better for him to take with the queen, but still a good position for black. So this is the first reply. The second way to protect this pawn is with knight e2, and with knight e2 we can take. And he can do two things. He can protect this f4 pawn, or this e5 pawn, sorry, with f4, or he can sacrifice that pawn with h4, because after queen pair there is a huge compensation with bishop f4, queen h8, take, and bishop e5, threatening the rook and the pawn on c3. And as I said before, the problem is that the h4 pawn is already advanced, and the square is protected by the bishop. A better way to face h4 is to just develop the knight on c6. And now what we want to do is taking this pawn, but also give a protection to the d4 push that protects the c3 pawn. So after f4, we can just play d4, and this position is good. Is a really imbalanced position. Both players have chances of winning. So yeah, these are the ideas of this opening. A very dynamic game from both sides. Really, really imbalanced game. Both players have to be careful. And let me know what you think in the comment. If you like my videos, leave a like and subscribe.